Like a fat guy putting on shots, you split your sides at Thursday Thoughts. Welcome to this week's episode of Thursday Thoughts with Eddie Anchor. I'm your host, Eddie Anchor. The season is now pretty much over, but the champion is all but decided after last week's matches. But that doesn't mean the fun needs to stop. With the countdown to the season finale already underway, it's going to be a big 7 weeks before we call it a wrap on season 2014. Without a further ado, let's get straight into this week's matchups. First of all, Bunga versus Ben. With nothing left but pride and bragging rights to play for here, this still promises to be the biggest match of the week. These two coaches have made it publicly known there is no room for niceties here. Not surprising, since all the spare space between them is usually filled with piles of bullshit spewing from their mouths in each other's direction. So far this year, despite having one of the most disappointing seasons of any coach in Thunderdome history, Bunga has still managed to stay well clear of Ben's team. That gap is closing though. After Bunga's humiliating defeat at the hands of the superior, supreme, and just plain super commish, he will be hoping to reverse that result this week against a far easier opponent. The first thing he could start by doing is make Gary Ablett captain. Never have I seen a worse coaching move. The little master racked up 150 odd points, while his actual captain, Liberatore, managed 120 in total. A few big ins for Ben's team this week have Bunga rattled. Sources close to Bunga say, totally overheard, I'm worried about Ben's own Henderson and his own Mitchell. I'm not even sure Sam Mitchell and Ricky Henderson will be enough to help Ben manage a second win in as many weeks though. Bunga by 93 points. Tom versus the commish. If Champion Data did statistical analysis on stupidity, Tom would rate in the elite categories. Hanging on to a shot at top spot by the cheese string stuck to the pizza box he slept under last night, instead of picking up players capable of scoring points, he brought in 3 players who have scored less points in their career than Callum has in total. Ben Simply Red Brown up forward just isn't getting the job done at this time of the year. So instead of winning in convincing fashion, he lost to Robbo, who had less players than Majak had rate charges this week. The commish, on the other hand, couldn't be going any better. His team has finally stabilised after a terrible start to the season and has managed to string together a month of solid scores, accumulating in doing a demolition job on Bunga last week. What happened in that match would be considered illegal in 15 countries around the world. With live wire forward Jamie Elliott out, it will mean round 1 draft pick Dustin Martin will have to slide back into the forward line, making way for a triumphant return of Toby Green. It's hard to pick a winner in this match. Actually, I lie. It's really, really easy. I was just being kind to Tom. The commish by 140 points. Hayden versus Steve. You wouldn't read about it, but Steve is actually one of the form teams in the league right now. With 4 wins in his last 5 matches, he has some form. And he's somehow managed to turn it around after his huge mid-season slide. Despite all those wins, he hasn't moved on the ladder in 4 weeks. This could be his week to finally move up into the top half. The reason this is possible is due to how badly the commish pummeled Bunga's team last week. Rudy Tomjanovic took less of a beating than Bunga did last week. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Hayden just needs to keep bullshitting his way through the season. He's like North Melbourne of the competition. Brilliant one week, shithouse the next. Due to no planning of his own, he has autopiloted his way into second place in the league. He is currently the clubhouse leader for the Stephen Bradbury Award this year. Everyone has been drinking too much paint thinner at the top of the ladder because Tom, Tricky and Bunga all fell over themselves in recent weeks and have let Hayden stroll past them. He will finish second. When compared to last year's second place, it's going to be a rather pathetic end of the season. Hayden's like an Elizabethan, only any good every second weekend. So based on that, I'm hoping to see Steve finally jump back into the second half of the league and win by 24 points. Let's move on to Andy versus Robbo. It may not be well known, but these two really don't like each other. They're a bit like Garfield and Odie, and Callum is John. They only tolerate each other while fighting for Callum's affection. Plus, John is kind of a doofus in the comics, so it seems rather appropriate comparison. Everyone thinks they're friends because they roll in the same clique and are interested in the same things, but that's where it all ends. It's all a facade. Secretly, Andrew is incredibly jealous of Robbo's cool attitude, athletic ability, rugged good looks, his stylish dress sense, his hands-on relationship with Callum, his tan. And on the other side, Robbo is jealous of Andy's belt. He's got a pretty nice belt. Robbo wishes he had one just like it. This match is going to be a brutal encounter that will certainly belie the great divide between these two on the ladder. It'll be very much showdown-esque. Now, let me tell you a tale. A tale of a man. A man who just didn't know when to quit. We'll flash back to last week. Down to 15 players. It's late in the weekend. All hope looks lost. 450 points down with only 3 players to play. A loss seemed inevitable. Enter a man for the moment. A legend. El Pomodoro, as the great Incan tribes of the north foretold. He wasn't going to cop one more loss, so he mounted one final surge at the death knell. Was it going to be enough to win? It was! Robbo for the win! The crowd cheers, women wept, babies spoke their first words, Robbo! It was a momentous occasion in the Thunderdome, marking the most epic comeback in history. For all his trouble, he's moved nowhere on the ladder. But it was a good day nonetheless. Shame it will come to a tragic end 1 week on as Andy cuts off his head. Andy by 200 points. Chris versus Tricky. When the dust settles on this season for Tricky, it will be one of great disappointment and underachievement for one of the most talented lists in the league. A poor training regime and far too much bourbon and coke has shattered any chance this team had of success. They say dogs are a lot like their owners. Well, the same could be said for Supercoach teams. The commish, solid and terribly unlucky, just like his team. Matt's team is the highest, just like him. Bunga's team is... well, anyway, you catch my drift. Tricky is infamous for a series of broken bones and obscure injuries that even the Three Stooges couldn't have scripted, just like his team. The look on his face must have been priceless when Heath Shaw ran flat out into Kurt Tippett's knee last week. I wish I was a fly on the wall for that moment. Brilliant. Chris seems to be back to his best with a few pathetic performances in a row. Like a brightly burning star, his lights have gone out very quickly and now it's just a matter of him falling down to earth. He's trying to avoid the wooden spoon. His heroic captain will help in that cause as he's back this week. Ryan Griffin. Assuming he plays a full game this week though, so we'll see how we go there. But surely Tricky can't drop another one, can he? It'd almost be enough to see his club fold altogether. Can't see it happening. Tricky by 111 points. Callum versus Matt. These two are like peas in a pod. Callum is like the twin brother Matt let all the air out of. That won't mean anything when the game starts. With a new spring in his step after return to form, Callum will fancy his chances of being a roadblock on Matt's road to the championship. Having already screwed him with the Dane Swan Brendan Goddard trade, Callum will be looking to double up and give him a double dose of the old Scroogey by giving Matt his first loss in a long time. What Callum has to be aware of is that Matt's team is never out of a match. I wouldn't say he has a never say die attitude, because we've all seen Matt chuck in the towel before. It's been more of a good luck than good management story. I suspect this week it will be more of the same though. Matt will be like Godzilla tearing through the city, while Callum's team will be thousands of fleeing Japanese people. Unless Callum can hire planes with machine guns, there is no way he's going to get King Kong off the top of the building this week. The ideal situation this week will be if Callum has Brendan Goddard as captain and he ruins Matt's week with a big game. Since Goddard is an arrogant turd and his success makes me sick, I'm hoping this will not happen. Matt by 145 points. Now, we move on to the ladder. As it has been the case for the last few weeks, Matt has surged to the lead with 5 wins in a row now, and it's just a battle between the rest of the mugs. With Ben, Robbo and the commish all winning last week, the gap between top half and the bottom half of the ladder has closed significantly, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a couple of top half schnobs drop out of the top 6 in the coming weeks. The team in the worst form at the moment is Bunga, so unless he can arrest his slide, he may be a chance of finishing right down the bottom once again. With those sort of performances for 2 years running, the supporters will soon be leaving chicken shit on the club room doorstep and asking for a change of coach. Now, we had a big signing this week down at Thunderdome headquarters. Now, it's not often here at Thursday Thoughts we get to report on one of the truly good news stories, but there was some wonderful news midweek. Anthony Morabito is finally set to make his long-awaited return to the AFL after 1,394 days out of action. With his availability confirmed, it was down to the young star to pick a club to play for. We managed to get the cameras down to the press conference for the announcement. Thanks everyone for coming. First off, I'd like to say it's great to be back, and I can't wait to run out for my new club this weekend. There were a few teams that came after my services, so it was very nice to know I was still wanted. First of all, I took a meeting with Tom earlier this week, but after a quick browse through his facilities, I didn't think 2 dog cans full of gravel and a used set of suspenders was really sufficient gym equipment to further improve myself. Chris was very accommodating. He flew me in, he took me out for a nice meal, imported expensive wine, had excellent club rooms, but I've seen the Liberace movie, and that wig that he's got on, his snappy dress sense, and the way he kept grabbing my balls, it was a little too uncomfortable for my liking. Midweek, I received an email from Bunga. I can only assume he was inviting me down to his headquarters to discuss the terms of a contract, but I couldn't decipher any of the contents of his email, and he spelt his name with a 6 and an upside down question mark, so we avoided that path. I am very proud to announce that from this week onwards, I will be a proud member of the Commissioners team. While they have had an indifferent season, they are a proud club with quality people and facilities. The commish sat down with me and we worked out a more than generous contract. He promised that even if I play shit in the midfield, he will have plenty of room for me in his defence. Thanks for your time, guys. All this support is making me weak at the knees, so I'll see you later. Thank you very much for that interview, Anthony. Now it's time for Free Agent of the Week. This week's Free Agent of the Week is one that you need to get at perfect time. He is very hit and miss. One week he'll drill 130, the next week he'll be subbed off for 13. This week he gets a chance after a great game in the VFL. With his career seemingly winding up, I think he will be hoping for one last crack at it. Adam Schneider will be lining up for the Saints this week, who have a pretty good recent record against the Blues. And with Carlton in a very poor defensive unit, I can see him getting plenty of loose possession between wing and half back. Or half forward. Get on him. Now, this is going to be a weekly wanker unlike most. This week, we're going to have a first, second and third. That's right. Most weeks it's a struggle to come up with even one. And when one can't be found, I just give it to Steve because he's always a wanker. This week, it's like everyone's put their tard face on. Now, let's get down to business. In third position. Third place this week should not be unfamiliar with this position. He has managed to throw away any possible chance of winning this year's league with some of the most arrogant and stupid coaching ever seen in the Thunderdome. Nobody who looks like a homeless Thunderbird should be cocky or complacent about anything. In fact, the way he's tracking, he probably should be verbalising his breathing. In, out, in, out. He's so stupid he'd probably forget to do it. Picking up Jed Buse and Ben Brown when you thought you were just going to be a good thing, turning up and beating Robbo. You're a flog, Tom. Third place. Now, second place may come as quite a shock to most of you, as you were probably expecting this individual to walk away with it this week. So, without having to roll with my usual bravado in the lead up, just let me read a quote from this individual that led to him getting into this segment this week. And I quote, "Just like the post that Robbo not ever trying to fix his team, he had 2 players starting that were not even playing. He should be sacked as coach." He goes on, "And now he has other player not playing because he is playing, he vice captain. He should be sacked for tanking." So, very strong words accusing somebody of tanking. Very, very strong words from someone who lost by almost 400 points themselves. One of the biggest losses in a non-bye week in Thunderdome history, might I add. Exceptionally strong words for a bloke who fucking won his game. Bunger! If you're gonna accuse someone of tanking, at least make sure they actually lose. Crikey! Now, how do you top that? Well, this week's Weekly Wanker has managed to, without probably even realising it. Might be a few surprised here. A famous comedian once said, "Attempted suicide is just another thing in life that person has failed at." Very appropriate for this week's Wanker. This week's Wanker's year is going so badly, they are barely able to scrape together enough points to round up to a whole number every week. They have failed in every single aspect of the season, from draft to trading to coaching. So, how easy is it to lose a game on purpose, might you ask? One might think it would be quite easy. Just drop a few players, don't replace a few injuries, pick a shit team, and away you go. Well, you know you're possibly the worst coach in the world when you can't even set your team up to fail. How do you fuck up tanking? You are really stinking it up when you can't even lose on purpose properly. So, for failing at failing, this week's Weekly Wanker is Robbo. Seriously, you can't even fail correctly. Fucking useless. Thank you for tuning in. That's all we've got time for this week. Enjoy your weekend. Good luck with your teams. Bye for now.